Okay, that's fucking amazing. Can I just play?
Come now. Marshal, the King of Waloed is our guest.
And you have His Majesty's answer.
Have you ever wondered why some games will keep you hooked, unable to let go of the controller, even though the story is really bad, or on the contrary, the game will feel like a chore to go through, even if you love their story and characters? Well, this is in large part due to the game's pacing. A game can have a ton of great ideas, but they can be put together in ways that will make them feel like a slug, even if you think you should technically be having a good time. The way every elements of a game are linked together strategically to control emotional reactions and keep players engaged results in a series of highs and lows, which, together, define a game's pacing. So, what constitutes pacing? Well, pretty much everything. But in video games, there are a couple of prevalent factors. First and most important is the gameplay variety. Or, what is the player doing? Are their physical skills put to the test? Are their reasoning skills? Are you asking them to relax, watching a cutscene? Or make intense emotional choices? All those elements are part of the gameplay experience, and define the variety of actions the player has to perform. Then we have difficulty, or challenge. And to be clear, we're not talking about the actual complexity of a given mechanic, but rather the player's perceived difficulty of each moment. The example I like to use is a very simple puzzle. At the start of the game, when you need to learn the controls and the rules of a given mechanic, the puzzle can feel like a 60 out of 100 on the challenge scale. While when you're at the end of the game, and the mechanics imprinted into your muscle memory, it would be more like a 5. The puzzle itself doesn't change, but its perceived difficulty is different depending on where it is in the game. The variation of challenge encountered within a game keeps the player on their toes, and always involved, which is part of the overall pacing. Then you have the rewards. Every time you reward the player, it catches back their attention, and reinforces specific behaviors, like wanting to fight enemies instead of running away, or exploring and searching the environment. But a reward isn't simply about giving an item. If you give the item for free, or if it's boring or underwhelming, it can very quickly have the inverse effect and discourage your player from engaging with the game. Another important factor is the amount of tutorials and general handholding. Do you let the player experiment and forge his own path? Or do you stop them every 5 seconds to tell them what to do? That can have a huge impact on your game's pacing, and make a difference between the player being engaged or annoyed with its mechanics. There can be several other factors, like narrative intensity, music, sound effects, but they would mostly be subsections of the aforementioned. All of those factors can be used to manage and control what the player is feeling at a specific time, which can be mapped out on an emotional intensity curve. And the emotions the player feel at specific times constitute the best measurement of a game's pacing. As an example, let's take a look at two different game sections. Let's break them down and analyze their pacing in excruciating details to try figuring out why the one which looks so mundane feels so engaging to play, while the one that looks epic and exciting can feel like a chore to get through. The first game section is the prologue to Breath of the Wild. Check the link in the description if you want to see the whole breakdown. The game has pretty much a perfect emotional intensity curve. It never drops or stagnates for too long, and every time it does dip a bit, it follows with something cool to bring it back up, even if just by a little bit. After a few minutes of linear exploration to get you accustomed to basic controls, it opens up and throws you right away in its open world, with seemingly no guidance. But everything in that world is placed with very specific intentions. Most tutorials are induced seamlessly, by placing new ingredients in between objectives. Objectives which are presented organically in the game world, without the need for text on screen, or icons. They also use the environment itself to guide you, with landmarks and clear signposting, meaning that you're always engaged with the environment rather than mindlessly following an icon. Last but not least, they keep rewarding you, always, for everything. Every nook and cranny you search gives you something new. Even when it's boring, usually the fact that you found it, and feel clever about it, is more the reward than the item itself. In that prologue, every time the emotional intensity drops a bit, it manages to pique your interest with something else to keep you going. Might it be curiosity, rewards, challenge, or simply wonder, until it ends on the highest note possible, the true reward, ultimate freedom. And now for the second game we're gonna be looking at, the prologue of Final Fantasy XVI. Check the link in the description if you want to see the whole breakdown. That game starts on a very high note, much more exciting than Breath of the Wild, with a kaiju monster battle, explosions, and epic music, only to come to an almost complete halt after a few minutes. Then it follows up with countless fake-out moments, where the game lets you believe that you're going to play, only to immediately interrupt you, may it be with a cutscene or tutorials. Every time the game does that, it drags the emotional intensity lower and lower, from annoyance to frustration. Which means that you could start an epic cutscene that should feel amazing, but already in a state of annoyance, dampening the interest you would normally have watching that cutscene. Also, the cutscenes go on for way too long, over-explaining and repeating the same thing over and over again. Then you have the rewards. Most rewards given to the player are placed directly on their path. They don't reward an achievement, they're just there. And most of the time, they're either useless or boring. So you don't feel excited. Hence, they don't help boost the emotional intensity. Finally, the vast majority of tutorials are given through free screens that interrupts you with large blocks of text. And they don't let you experiment with systems. They just force you to do an action, to learn an input, rather than let you experiment and discover a mechanic. That makes tutorials either tedious or frustrating. So what can we do to make sure the pacing remains engaging throughout the game? Well, it's a very complex endeavor, with lots of interconnected pieces. But there are a couple of rules and principles we can apply to our level design to help us achieve that. Let's start with the rules about the narrative. The first of those would be a classic: show don't tell. That's a golden rule of storytelling. May it be in books, movies, or games, you should never have characters explain to the audience what they're supposed to think or feel. The channel plays the thing as an amazing video using Star Wars to explain the concept. Check the link in the description below. In our case, let's watch a cutscene from Final Fantasy XVI.
The Phoenix! Joshua! Lord Murdoch! His Highness is there! Joshua! Stop this! He's lost control. I have to do something. I have to save him. No, my lord. Fall back. Climb! Joshua, are you in pain? Not now. Come on! You're his shield. Do your duty. Save him. My lord? What in the name of... Second icon of fire. But that's impossible.
The scene should be epic and feel impactful. but it is held down by characters explaining how they feel and what they think in excruciating details. Here's the same scene, but without the expository dialogue.
Joshua! Lord Murdoch! His Highness is back! Joshua! Stop this! Climb! Ah! Not now. Ah! My lord?
Without the dialogue, you can let yourself feel the moment, instead of thinking about what they're saying. It's just like the added "no" in Return of the Jedi. The scene came off as way more powerful before, when you could see the emotion only through body language, instead of being force-fed what you're supposed to feel. Then, at all cost, avoid repeating the same thing over and over again.
If you believe yourself worthy to be called Shield of the Flame, then prove it. Well, if you're not cut out to be a shield, there's always work for you in the stables.
You are a true Shield of the Flame.
My shields look after me.
Am I to go with you as Joshua's shield?
Will make a splendid shield.
I am Joshua's shield.
You're a shield of Rosaria, after all.
Your brother will be a fine
Shields are allowed to take their ease. I was born to be your shield.
You're supposed to be my shield, remember?
Yes, I remember, I'm a fucking shield, thank you! Stop being afraid that your audience not gonna be able to understand what you're trying to tell them. If you feel the need to repeat the same thing over and over again to make sure everyone got it, well, the problem isn't your audience. It's either your writing that's too vague, or your plot that's too convoluted. And that's what needs fixing. Now, cutscenes can be amazing, and are a great tool in a designer's arsenal, but you should keep them for important moments, and avoid expository dialogues. I know, you built a world and its lore, and you want to make sure the player gets it all, but force-feeding them copious amount of expository dialogues won't help them be engaged in that universe. You risk losing them. A video game isn't a movie. It has many more devices to help tell that story, other than a cutscene. You can have characters talk during gameplay.
Marl's great. She helped get me set up back in the day.
Or you can have ambient events happening in the background as you walk past them.
You leave me alone!
Down on the ground.
Okay, Jesus.
Let's get
I didn't
down.
do anything wrong! No!
You can use environmental storytelling to show things that happened without stating it outright. Something as simple as an item description can help you build your lore and world building. Use the cutscenes when you need to convey complex emotions, character dynamics, or show something cool to the player. Which brings me to the final narrative point. In a game, a cutscene's purpose is not to tell a story. Don't get me wrong, you can still use it to tell a story, but storytelling should never be the primary reason why you decide to place a cutscene in the flow of your game. There are usually 3 valid reasons to interrupt gameplay for cutscenes which will avoid destroying your pacing. Number 1 is a change in objective. If a player completed an objective and needs to know what to do next, for example, you complete a very hard navigation challenge and arrive at a boss. Well, using a cutscene to introduce the boss and show you that now the objective is to kill him is a good use of a cutscene.
Let it be Margit the Fell.
2. A change of mood. If you want to change the mood or ambience, a cutscene is a good way to do it. For example, you can be exploring the world, but then arrive in a creepy area. Well, cutscene is a good way to transition from a calm stroll in the fields to a creepy and dangerous sneak. And the final purpose of a cutscene, well, it's to give the player a reward. And I don't mean giving them an item during the cutscene. I mean the cutscene itself is the reward. You can be going through an extremely hard section, and after dying multiple times you finally succeed. Well, getting a cutscene there, if it's a good one, will give you a well-deserved breather, and serve to congratulate you. And a single cutscene can also serve all those purposes at once. Then, once your cutscene is placed to serve its purpose, you can use it to tell a bit of story. But remember, avoid too much lore and world-building exposition. Try to keep cutscenes for actions and emotions.
Your business. You didn't love Mary anyway.
What? Hey, wait!
And now the gameplay rules to keep the pacing captivating. Again, show don't tell. But this time it's not about the narrative, it's about gameplay. You should at all costs avoid telling the player what to do and how to do it. Of course you need a minimum of tutorials to let them know what they can do. If only the basic input mapping. But when they know their options, let them discover the possibilities. Show them new ingredients, but not flat out tell them what to do with them. You want the player to feel involved and understand how your game works, not just memorize everything they have to do. Same thing goes with map markers. Of course, you can have an objective, but don't breadcrumb the player along the way. Have your world itself show the way and offer guidance. If your level design isn't good enough to be explorable without breadcrumbs, well, make it better. Now, there's one thing everyone hates in life. What? What? What do you mean? Sorry, let's do that again. So yeah, there's one thing everyone hates in life. It's... Wait. What? Sorry, let's do this one more time. There's one thing everybody hates in life, and that's being interrupted. Being forced to stop what you're doing to take care of something else is annoying and frustrating in life. And so is it in a game. The best way to annoy your player is to interrupt them while they're doing something you ask them to do. The more you interrupt them, and the more that frustration builds up, to the point where they might reach the most epic cutscene ever, but don't even pay attention to it because they're too pissed to have been interrupted over and over to get there. And interruptions are not just cutscenes, but free screen tutorial qualify as such as well, or locking the player in an area where they can't do anything. You can sometimes use interruptions to create an effect of surprise, but it needs to be justified and very carefully planned to generate a feeling of excitement to overcome the annoyance and frustration. So finally, you must at all costs try to avoid force failing the player.
What do you call it if you're playing an action game and doing really well, but then the game forces you to fail within the confines of a cutscene?
You know, I can't...
Fucking dumb bullshit sauce! I call it dumb bullshit sauce.
I was gonna suggest the badass paradox.
Dumb bullshit sauce.
After succeeding at something hard, instead of being congratulated, you're being forced to fail narratively. That's technically called ludonarrative dissonance.
Dumb bullshit sauce.
When the gameplay and narrative try to tell two different stories at the same time. It's the opposite of rewarding and generates annoyance and frustration. But even worse than that is when the game forces you into a gameplay failure state. I've seen a lot of games where you would have a stealth section and complete it perfectly, only to then be ambushed and have to fight your way through to escape. That's the worst, because fighting is literally the state you get in when failing your stealth systemically. So after spending an hour avoiding fight at all costs, the game force detects you in a cutscene and have you placed in the context you were just trying to avoid. That's frustrating, and to use another technical term, fucking stupid! When the player succeeds at something hard, reward them. Don't penalize them. Alright, so if we have all those rules and if it's that simple, why don't all games have perfect pacing? Well, there are a couple of reasons for that. The first thing is, it can be really hard to accurately predict every single reaction the player will have at every single moment. Even the person with the most experience, or a freaking design scholar, can make mistakes. Especially in a domain as volatile as predicting human emotions. Something that speaks greatly to you might be boring to your core audience, and vice versa. That becomes even more true as you grow older, and your interests start diverging from theirs. And that's why you need to playtest again and again and again, and plan for redesign phases between those. Problem is, a lot of large production fail to anticipate those phases, start playtesting way too late and don't have the resources to redo parts of the game. So instead, they try to patch around the issues they find, which very often can make the final product feel like a Frankenstein monster with lack of cohesion. Another important point is the lack of formal training. Video games is a new medium. We're still learning about it and discover new concepts every day, and real game design schools and programs have only recently started being popularized. A lot of people who made it in the industry before that either came from other mediums or learned as they went, usually starting as testers and slowly climbing the ladder. That means there's a lack of cohesion and common knowledge across teams. It also means a lot of directors and producers act on instinct and feelings instead of proper understanding, and can't put words on what makes those feelings stir. They ask to try things out without knowing if it will work or understanding how it works, and then test it to see how they feel about it. Cut the idea and try something else, wasting time and energy.
We need you to draw 7 red lines, all of them strictly perpendicular, some with green ink and some with transparent. Can you do that?
No.
And also, they often test the features in a vacuum, find it cool, so they ask to implement it. But they fail to see how it will affect the rest of the game. On some very rare occasions, you'll get someone who instinctively knows how to make an amazing game, like a Mozart of gaming. But that's an infinitely small amount of people. And unfortunately, too many people wrongly believe they're one of those. And the final reason why a game's pacing will get screwed up is, well, simply because there are too many cooks in the kitchen.
Too many cooks, 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 too many cooks.
Many different directors and producers have very different visions of what makes a game great, and they will all preach for their own department. People don't understand what the game's priorities should be, and all try to get the biggest part of the cake. And very often, the people in charge don't understand why it is the way it is. Some game directors who studied in cinema will wonder how their game can be boring if their cutscenes are amazing. An art director who made the most beautiful landscapes will wonder why people hate the world. Even though it looks breathtaking, well, there are invisible collisions everywhere, and moving around is a clunky chore. Game designers will create fun mechanics, but interrupt you every 2 minutes to explain them, or not have interesting ways to use them in the world. Everybody wants to make the movie, write the books, paint the landscape, or craft the characters of their dreams. But very few see the big picture, or can easily understand how everything blends together to create a game. So yeah, pacing is by far the most important part of a video game and will very often make the difference between losing or winning over your players. But it is far from an easy concept to grasp, and is interdependent with every aspect of the game. We have some guidelines and rules to help us better pace a game, but not everyone knows or understands them, and it's not enough to simply apply them blindly. You also need intuition and experience, but above all else, feedback, which you need to actually listen to. You also need a director who understands how every aspect of the game works together to make an experience, and can communicate that efficiently to his team. And even then, you still need a planning that considers feedback and iteration loops. Only then can you start having a game that might be engaging and captivating enough to keep the player's interest in the long run. Alright, that's it for this one. What game do you think has great pacing, or is a slog? Any game you prefer to watch than to play? Because you love the story but feel like it's a chore to go through? Let me know in the comments below. On that note, take good care, and as always, see you next time.
Too many cooks,